My name's Rick Mannon, and I'm an inductee into the Brantford Area Hall of Recognition, and I'm thrilled today to be talking with the Summerhays brothers and their father, and May Bricker. May is the wife of late Frank Bricker, who was their trainer and manager. I'll talk about Frank first. Once a boxer himself, turned manager and trainer, Frank not only managed many Legion 90 boxers to national and international championships, such as Gary Broughton, who earned the name the Brantford Bomber. He was open to anyone willing to show respect for the craft of boxing, including youngsters from poor and broken homes, whom he counseled whether or not they had any boxing potential. Locally, Frank trained and managed the Summerhays brothers, Terry, Gary, and John. Frank was inducted into the Brantford Area Sports Hall of Recognition in 1984. The Summerhays brothers, John, Terry, and Gary, the name Summerhays is synonymous with the sport of boxing. The brothers were known as gentlemen in their sport, both in and out of the ring. They were managed by Frank Bricker, and they proudly represented Brantford 90 Legion Boxing Club for their entire careers. They competed against 9 eventual world champions and several other world-class boxers. Brothers Terry, Gary, and John Summerhays put Brantford on the boxing map during the 60s, 70s, and 1980s. All 3 brothers turned professional on April 20th, 1970 in Windsor, Ontario. They were the only 3 brothers to box in New York, Madison Square Garden on the same night, October 25th, 1974. Johnny was 2-time Canadian Lightweight champion. Gary was undisputed Canadian champion and 1-time Commonwealth Light-Heavyweight champion. And Terry was Canadian Amateur Welterweight champion. In 1984, John, Gary, and Terry Summerhays were honored with the induction into the Brantford Area Sports Hall of Recognition for the sport of boxing. Okay, Terry, all 3 of you as kids were good athletes, playing competitively in baseball, football, and hockey. Can you tell us the story of how all 3 of you decided to take up boxing?
Well, we were playing baseball at the time down in Eagle Place, and we were having a practice, and some boys didn't show up. So we wondered next week. We asked them why they didn't show up. They said they had gone down, did some boxing there at the Legion, and they got a free pop. And so we thought, well, gosh, that sounds pretty good. So that's what we did, and we liked it, and we stayed at it.
Good. Can you talk about your introduction to Frank Bricker and how he influenced your outlook in and out of the ring, and what was his personality like?
Well, Frank was very good, and we couldn't have had a better manager. He was very, very knowledgeable. He helped us training, and he brought us along very well also. He didn't just put us in with a top-ranked fighter when we only had a couple fights. He would, bring us along very slowly, but he knew what he was doing. And he'd help you in a fight too. In between rounds and that, he'd tell you what to do, and it really helped. And he's very dedicated. All the fights that we had, the 3 of us, and all over the place, especially my brothers all over the world, he never missed a round of a fight. So that, yeah, we were he's 1 in a million, and yeah, thank God we had him as a manager.
Good. Terry, you were the first to win your Golden Gloves. What was Frank's demeanor like as a manager and coach, and how did you get ready for that big fight?
Well, it was fight. I believe I won 3 fights there. See, each time in the Golden Gloves, it depends on how many's in your division, and I think I had to fight 3 times. As soon as you lose, you're out. But I happened to win all 3, and then you fight one, and 2 weeks later you fight again if you win, and that's the way that was done. But yeah, Frank was very helpful there, and yeah.
Okay. Gary, you fought some of the best light heavyweights in the world. Is there anyone specifically you'd like to talk about?
Michael Spinks was a good fighter. He was very talented, and he had an awkward size. He was tall, and so he wasn't easy to fight. and he was quite a fighter, and that was quite a fight I had with him.
Where did you fight? I didn't see that.
Okay.
Where?
John, can you tell us about your fight in Port of Spain, Trinidad? And apparently there was a mugging or something there?
Yeah, do you want the mugging or do you want the
How
fight?
about both?
Okay,
Both stories.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Anyways, I had the opportunity to fight in Port of Spain, Trinidad, and it was #1 contender in the world, Claude Noel. And so we were pretty excited about that, Frank and myself. And so we flew down there and everything, and everything was great. They gave us a driver and everything and that. We were up there probably about 5 days before the fight, I think, so we could still train and keep our training going. And there's two things I'd like to share with you on that. The fighter Claude Noel himself, so we were a few days before the fight, and we're walking down. The streets are very, very, very narrow. And as you're walking down them, the crowds are terrific too. Eh? There's lots of people walking up and down. So you're walking along, and the one day we went into the check on our flights back. Frank always checked a couple days before the fight when we'd be flying back out again. So to make sure, Frank says, I'm going to check in and make sure that our tickets are all set and everything so we can fly out of here after the fight or whatever. I said, sure. So I sat down and I kind of looked over at a couple tall colored gentlemen that were reading the paper, and they put the paper up right away over their face. I thought, wow, are these people ever shy here? They're really shy. Port of Spain, Trinidad, great place to walk around. All kinds of people. They're all helpful. Boy, this is really, really nice. And so out we went. Frank did a check off and everything and that, and off we went. And we're walking back to where we were gonna drive back to home or whatever. And anyways, we're walking along, and as the streets are really, really narrow, and it was hot. I can remember it was around 30 or 31 every day, and I had little short pants on and everything, and I was just looked like a little kid and walking around, and then I was walking around with this old gray-haired man, Frank, but he was in good shape, and we're walking along, and this big tall kid comes up, colored boy, and he points his fingers in Frank's chest. So I'm standing there. I says, "Yeah, I recognize that face. I seen it, but I'd seen that face in when I looked over at him when he was looking at his newspaper, and he put it up over his face. He didn't want me to really understand or see that same face, but I did. I recognized it. I thought, oh, we must know him and that, So all of a sudden he's grabbing at Frank. He's grabbing around. He grabbed his wallet, and Frank grabbed his wrist. So there's a guy. He's got hold of his wallet, and he's got Frank's got a hold of his wrist, a real good tight grip. And I'm standing there with my hands in my pocket. I'm saying, we must know them. And you get some pretty stupid thoughts in your head when you're standing there, and Frank says, Johnny. I said, yeah. I said, we're getting mugged. I said, I was just shocked because I just thought the people were too nice there to be mugging people. But anyways, they were mugging us, and so Frank, another guy came from the back to went to grab a hold. That's where Frank grabbed the fellow's wrist, and the fellow from the front where it was grabbing, and Frank saying, Johnny, you gotta hit him, or whatever. So I finally realized it. I threw a right hand and I bounced it off of the big tall fellow's head, and he almost went down because he was kind of unsure of himself. But he stood up and he looked over at me again, and he took off. He was gone. And the one behind, Frank swung around and jabbed him in the mouth, and the guy put his hand up in his blood, and he's looking at Frank, gray hair. He's looking at me, this little guy in short pants. Gone. Gone. It was unbelievable, and the people were running all around picking up. Frank has a lot of pens and paper when he's writing out different things and that was all over, and people were picking it all up and bringing it back to Frank. The people were just terrific, except for those two guys, but they were gone. It was amazing, and that was I says, I don't think they'll believe it back home, but it happened, and it can happen. It's just that you got to be on your toes when you're in a foreign country like that. But I'll tell you, that was a real barn burner. That was.
That's a great story. And
yeah.
How about the fight itself?
The fight itself. Now here, he was at the time he was ranked #1 in the world, and I thought, well, he's going to have a real flamboyant type. Because when I fought Aaron Pryor danced all around, gave out flags, threw flags, American flags, Canadian flags. He's breaking them in or giving them to you or whatever, and he was putting on a real show. This fella here ranked #1 in the world. Pryor soon took over and became champion, but this fella at #1 in the world had a towel draped over his shoulders, and he just came to the center of the ring. We had our gloves put on or whatever it was and everything, and he just touched gloves, just a gentleman all the way around. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a good fight, because usually the quiet ones are pretty tough. And the first round, I thought, Frank says, now you got to feel it out, make sure. Frank always told me to make sure you feel these things out. Just don't go right in there full out or whatever. Just make sure you try and get his style too. And he did. He caught me a beauty in the first round, but then I was fine. I was good then. I stayed right on top of my game plan, and I had to, because Claude Noel was a good puncher. He was a really good puncher. You don't get to be #1 in the world and have all those knockouts without being a good puncher. So I knew that I was in for. And the funny thing, here's another funny thing that I can add to the story, is there's a whole bunch of people were yelling up, "Come on, Summerhays, you can do it. You can do it. You're doing great. You're doing great." And they're all yelling up. And I got back. I came back and I sat down. I says, "Frank," I says, I got a whole bunch of fans here. I got all kinds of fans. This is really. Frank says, "I'll tell you about it after." And I said, okay. And he says, "Just concentrate on the fight." I said, "Okay." But I mean, can you hear them? They're all cheering for me and that. That's really good. Well, how it worked out there, I had no betting line. So they're trying to pick what round I get knocked out in. That was going to be the thing. So anyways, as I got past the 5th and 6th and 7th round, they were all cheering for me, because I looked like I was going to be, and I did. I had a good 10-round fight with the #1 contender in the world, and they were all happy. They all loved me, but it was because the bet that I'd be there at the end of the fight. So anyways, you can take different things for granted. I took it. They were nice people, and they were. So.
Okay, that's great, John.
I've wasted my 1,000 words now.
Just don't get him on the phone.
This is all good. May I have a question for you? Do you have any memories or stories of traveling with Frank and the boys? Can you think of any memories that...
All kinds of... Huh?
St. Catharines.
Do what?
St. Catharines. One of the Canadian amateur.
I forgot. Well,
Remember you were looking at those magazines? Gary used to always do that to you. He'd open up a Playboy magazine and he'd say, "There you go, man." And then he'd take off. And she'd be standing there, "Oh, Gary!"
You hand it to me especially when the newsmen were around.
Yeah.
Oh no, the ones I could tell you, I don't know. Like, you mean like Father Kelleher and his whiskey and the little Jewish guy in Youngstown, the promoter that ran around with his supper in a 6-quart basket. He carried it all through the fight after he took his fight. Yeah. I remember one time I walked into a building and they were all getting weighed in. I don't know whether you were there. Who was boxing? But there was Allie and the guy with the big hair. They were all lined up on the bench. And they're getting weighed in, all in trunks. And they were all silent. As soon as they got weighed and the newsmen showed up, Allie took off on his spiel. You know, there was lots of things like that. And the night Gary knocked the guy out of the ring about 6 times, they kept picking him up, putting him back in again. And we almost got into it because there was myself and Teresa and the Rowe boys and Mr. Rowe. We looked around, we were the only white people in the audience in Detroit. So we sat quiet because that guy had fought just before Gary. He got up and he started bugging us from behind. So the Rowe boys quietly got up and walked back and talked to him. Yeah. Well, we were scared stiff. But when we looked around and realized there was only 6 of us against the whole Detroit arena full of black people. And the only other encounter was the one in Halifax when Gary Broughton knocked their champion out. And we spent till 1 o'clock in the morning in the car with the car running, waiting for them to get out of the dressing room because one of Downey's managers, they chased him in there. They chased him in the ring to begin with because Gary had knocked out their champion. And they ran them into the dressing room, Frank, and this Gary, he didn't know what had happened to him. They'd scooted him out. And this little guy came in with them, and they were hammering on the doors. They had every policeman in Halifax there because that crowd just went so crazy. So this little guy went in, ran in the dressing room with Frank. He took a chair and broke it, just grabbed the back and broke. He said, "Come on, Frank." And this guy must have been 70, 75 years old. But he's going to help Frank fight off all of Halifax. Yeah. But it was 1 o'clock in the morning before they could get them out of that arena and into the car safely. I've never seen anything like that. They just went crazy. The minute Gary knocked that guy out, they just went crazy. Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
John.
What was his name, John? Downey.
Oh, yeah. Ray Downey?
Okay. Well, I have a question for you, John. Boxing gave each of you terrific life experiences all over the world for more than 20 years. That shaped your lives and made you all athletes, and people looked up to you and admired you. What were your role models? Who were your role models and mentors when you were growing up?
Well, I would think that, for one, I never told him, but it would be my dad, because my dad used to make sure that we always got to our sports. He was not an athlete. He was just a small man, a farmer type of thing. But he wanted us to be in every sport we wanted to be in. He bent over backwards.
And got us there all the time, too.
Yeah, he sure did.
Made sure we were there.
So he was. And my mom was a real big fan.
Oh, yeah.
So you had your hands tied to keep her settled down, eh?
Yeah.
But I guess our parents were super role models, and why I say that too is they used to dress us up real funny with these funny little suits that were way too tight and everything. We used to go to church. And Gary, I can remember you grew out of your suit. It was so funny. It looked like you had short pants on, and you had them up around here, and your sleeves were right about there. He had a little tie on and everything and that. And he looked just like I don't know what he looked like, but
Scooby doll.
Yeah. Anyways, I still remember that. We used to go to church.
Yeah, he still smiled though.
Yeah, we used to walk across the Victoria school we went to, and Mr. Groves used to be there with you remember Mr. Groves? And he says, "Where are you guys going?" And we said, "We're going to church. We always come across here." He says, "The church burned down last night." And it did. They had a
fire.
Yeah, fire.
Yeah.
And guess what? We turned around. We said, "Yahoo!" You know, we ran home. So that's out of our.
You met
now
your mom and
I would never do that now because
you met Mom and I, and you said, "No
What
church.
church was
The
it?
church burned down."
Yeah.
We didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't know.
But you know,
Fire,
we loved Sunday school and that, everything that, but they just gave us more playing time, I guess.
Okay.
So,
Now this is a question for anybody, and
Okay.
in May as well. What did it mean, in May's case, what did it mean for Frank to be inducted, and for you fellas to be inducted into the Sports Hall of Recognition in Brantford?
Well, I don't know. I thought it was.
It's
What would you call it?
It's an honor.
It was an honor for the work he'd done because he'd been in it since he came home from overseas. He had his first club in 1940 down on Alfred Street, wasn't it?
I can't help you on that one.
Before our time.
Well, he came home in 46, and by 48 he was up in the Legion, wasn't he? Anyway,
Yeah.
he started right into it, and it kept him occupied anyway. I didn't know he was into it with such fervor till he started into the pro, you know, because they were in the Legion, or in the YMCA for quite a while, till they politely asked him to leave because the boxers weren't quite gentlemen. Yeah, well, that's what they told him. They didn't like them there, so they asked him to leave. And what they put in, weightlifters in your place or something, do you remember? I remember Frank coming home and telling me, being asked to leave the Y, take the boys out of there. And that's when he went over to the Legion. The Legion took him in,
Legion,
yeah.
Branch 90.
Yeah, that was a long time, John.
Now what about you fellas? What do you...
We feel very honored, at least to say
Yeah.
we all do
Yeah.
feel very honored.
To be involved, to meet somebody like that, like a fatherly image, to have one at home and at the gym. Boy, what a blessing! Great blessing.
Well, he had orders from headquarters too. Because I told him when he started out, just remember, you've got somebody's children in that car. And if anything happens to them, you know. I mean, we know a lot of them that were so damn drunk. Were so drunk, some of them, they
Man, cut
couldn't.
that one out.
Well, they couldn't conduct her. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Well, the one that used to get up at 10 o'clock and say, well, I've worked hard all day getting these golden gloves together, and I'm tired. I think I'll go home.
Who was that?
Father Caliver.
Monsignor
He ran the
Keller.
Golden Gloves in
Yeah.
Detroit.
And they used to have terrific crowds. They used to,
Yeah.
sometimes you'd have 15 fighters in a weight class.
Yeah.
So you got to get those fighters run off every 2 weeks. So you either have 4 fights staged with certain weights
Yeah.
and different things like that. It was quite a
That was a Golden Glove when they ran
yeah,
the Golden
yeah,
Glove
it's
there.
quite a tournament.
See, these guys saw the fighting end of it. I saw all that was going on behind all the funny bits and all the, you know.
Yeah.
We used to sit there and watch them fight too, but there was a lot of the stuff that went on behind that they didn't see.
Okay, well, here's another question for you. At a young age, you were very successful at all sports, but you excelled at boxing. What do you think is the value of young people being involved in sports?
That's great. That's a good question.
Yes, I think it's very valuable because it keeps kids off the street, and gives them something to do, and it also keeps them off playing at home with a video game, gives them some exercise, keeps them in shape. So I think that's two big things.
I think it also stimulates the brain when you're out there doing all the different sports, as long as you're not doing the wrong ones. You get out there and you're growing up. I mean, I can't think of a better way of growing up. I love my years of growing up. I would never throw baseball, hockey, or the boxing, or anything. It's like, if it was a sport, I loved it. And
you played all the sports, Johnny. Why didn't you grow up?
There. Answer that.
Anyways, I think they're a real blessing, especially when a lot of these coaches and that would take on these teams were just ordinary people, but they love the kids. They love getting the kids active. They love doing things for the kids. And to me, that's
the whole thing.
That is, it sure is. Sports can bring a lot of families together, and I think that's great.
Okay. Now, you know, Brantford and Brant County, this whole area has produced a lot of good athletes in many different sports. Any thought on why that happens? Why do we produce so many good athletes?
Well, it's not the water.
It might be that Brantford water.
So? I don't think so, Gary.
It's different.
But you know what?
Do you think it's because the men they have
mentors?
The men, no, they don't have so many outside. Like in big towns, there's nightclubs, there's all this for them to get into, the older men. But in Brantford, it was encouraged in the schools too, years ago.
Brantford's always been a sporting city, though.
Well, we always had such a good sports page too, good writers that did.
That's true too. Yes.
That kept it going.
Yeah. But Brantford is Brantford's really high on the sport calendar of all different kinds of sports. They can. It's amazing what Brantford brings to the world. Not Brantford just bringing the. I mean, I personally think they had the greatest hockey player that ever left, and Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
You know, but also there's lots of sports, great hockey players coming out of this region.
Some good athletes,
But also football. You know. Baseball. It's all. And a little
Maybe
bit
it is the water.
I know, Never thought of that.
May, I've got a question for you. What do you think Frank got out of managing and training?
Oh, I think it was his life's work, his dream from the time he was boxing himself in the States, a pro, when he was 14.
I saw a Frank fight.
Yeah, he was, and then when he came back, and something I just found out a couple of weeks ago from reading a write-up I didn't know existed, that he ran fights for the army in Belgium after the war, because he was last in, last out, being older, and he ran fights in Belgium for months for the army. And the write-up's downstairs, and I never read it before. I just left it there. Now, when I read that, I thought, holy smoke, no wonder he stayed another year. Everybody was home in 45, but he got home in 46 because he never went in till 43. But he'd have died without it, that's for sure. You know, if it hadn't been for boxing, I don't know what he would have done. Okay. Because he wasn't a very good fisherman. He just sat and held the pole.
I heard he let a lot get away.
Sounds like me.
He just sat there. Well, yeah.
Okay, well, John, this maybe I can direct this question to you. With the popularity of mixed martial arts fighting today, what do you think the future of sport of boxing is?
Well, right now, boxing has taken a step back with the martial arts and everything and that, but I can still see it coming on, because they have certain things in line, like certain laws you can't do. You can't do certain things and everything. Where this other sport that's kind of taken over, it's doesn't have as good of conditions placed on it, that you'll get penalized if you do certain things and everything, and it's pretty bad. I think you're going to see a lot of people damaged later
all
on,
the old
5 to
guys,
10 years from now.
Frank, they
Now,
all
I'm
quit.
saying this to you
Brandy
today
and them all
in this
in
living room,
Hamilton and Toronto.
but I'd say we look at this 10 years
And I
from
don't
now,
think
we're
there's
going to have a
any
lot
around in the
of
States either.
a lot of people that are going to be hurting, really hurting,
Mm-hmm.
forgetting, hurting, and because it's just you can't do that day in day out. Take kicks to the head and elbows to the thing, like it's you're holding everything against solid thing impacts. So I really.
I think boxing will come
Yeah.
back to be.
I do
top
too.
of it.
I do too.
Well, also because there's none in
Well,
Canada.
they got good
None of it.
rules though, May, in the boxing too.
Yeah, but will the kids go for it? That's the thing. They get these crazy things. They'd rather see what's going on there in that squared circle that they've got going.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any. There's no fighters in Canada that I know of. Do you know any around now? From any place? All the clubs are closed up.
Yeah, we actually had strong clubs. We had
Yeah.
rating systems that went down in the
Yeah,
we had 10, 12
yeah,
fighters rated in
yeah.
the
And you
Canadian,
don't hear any alleys or
no.
any of the boys in the States anymore.
No.
There's none of them. It's all this.
But I definitely agree with these guys here about the sport of boxing is stepped down or has come
Yes.
down a little wee bit. But I have
I think it'll come back.
Yeah, I think it really will because they're going to say, hey, you know what? We've seen enough of this. There's too many people that are getting hurt and everything like that. And you do. You get hurt in the boxing world too. But the referees control the fight. They get in. They can get in right away, get them apart. Or if the fighter goes down, that's it. You don't jump on him. You can't do anything to him. You can't hammer him when he's down. Things like that. You knock him down. You do the
And
count.
back off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So I think the rules are better in boxing, much better, and the checkups and everything. I mean, we used to have to before a title fight. We used to always have to go in and be checked over by the doctor and everything. And they used to do really, really good checks. And I used to think, whoa, boy, at least I'm getting a check out all the time. And I think all of us realize that. We really that's what we liked about the sport of boxing too, is you had the doctor at the fights and you had to pass the, it wasn't a safety test, but it's I don't know, it doesn't, I don't think it really compares to the elbows and the knees and all the things. And if you've got a guy pinned, you start hammering him. You can get 5, 6, 7 solid punches in before they can pull that guy off. Well, that there is insurmountable damage done already.
Yeah.
So
it's a good point,
yeah.
John. One last question is, what advice would you give to young athletes today? So there's one message you wanted to deliver.
Well, if I had a Frank Bricker, I could give that message, because I would not have fought, and I would never have fought. I mean, Terry and Gary, the same. I can speak for them too. We would never have fought if Frank had anything had happened to Frank, or he'd stepped down or whatever. We would have stepped down. We would have left the sport of boxing, because we trusted and believed that much in Frank, and we were.
That's right.
Yeah,
He was
that's
very
right.
dedicated.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable. He's very dedicated, and he also, through his boxing, that he met a lot of people, and he knew how many different people he could trust. So if he said, "Well, how about this guy matching him up with it?"
Yeah.
He
That
could
was
trust
great.
the people, and that's the way he could move us.
You should have heard him on the phone sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he had all kind of people all over the world who he knew and who he could trust, and that made a lot of difference. That's how we could get fights all over the world.
In between rounds, he could tell us, okay, I know what's happening here. Throw your right. Cross over with your right. Cross over with your... And he'd get that in your head, and you let go right, bang. I said, why didn't I do that a long time ago? And Frank used to say, he's open. Frank would watch the other fighter through each round as you were fighting him, and he could tell which, when you came back and you sat down, he'd tell you what to do. You didn't sit down and say, you want water, or you want a stew, or whatever it is. Yeah, that's fine. Just rest, relax, and everything. No, he used to say, okay, this is what you can hit him with. He's open for this. He's dropping his. If you get a chance, drop a right hand or a crossover or whatever, and you'd be sitting there and you'd be listening and you'd be encouraged, because you'd sit down and you'd know you're listening to a guy who knew the sport of boxing and knew every inch of it. Every inch of it. He understood boxing, and that's the sport he needed to be in. He was in the right sport, and he helped us tremendously.
So having trust and faith in your coach or your manager, your trainer is huge. Right? Yes,
sure. And even in training, in training you go that extra mile because you know he's going the extra mile. He's going the extra 10 miles. So you're going to go that extra mile. And that's why we were noted for being in shape.
Yeah, because today, in the past too, there's a lot of managers there that just used to throw fighters in and people you shouldn't. They're way overmatched, and that's how you get people hurt. And but Frank wasn't like that. He'd bring you along slowly and develop you, and that made a big difference.
Is there anything else you guys would like to add or make?
No.
A little bit.
Just that I hated to see it all come to an end because there was so many kids down there yet waiting to go, but there was nobody to train us, so it just fell apart.
It's so valuable to have a good manager. Yeah. Very
They used to fill that Branch 90. The kids were all over, but that enticed parents to stay and help, and we got to know all the different helpers that helped. So there was always 4, 5, 6 helpers up there, and that made a big difference. And it was camaraderie. Everything was. It was so good. It was a blessing. It was a place to learn and have fun. And we used to go. They used to have the coffee shop at the corner. We used to go there and
Kingswood.
Kingswoods. They'd have it set, and they have our coffee all ready and everything. We'd come in and everybody. You talk to. It was a great Saturday morning workouts were great. You have a great workout. You go over to Sherwood, Kingswoods, and the people that used to come in and sit down, and people coming in. Well, they just says your coffee. They just kept pouring us coffee. They said it's free because we want you here. So we used to go over there all the time, and it was great. It was great. It was a great life.
Yeah,
it really was. Because also boxers, these believe it or not all boxers now, but because I can't, but the ones I know, my brothers included, if they say something, they mean it. If they do something, they do it because there's a reason. And I've learned that they're tough. They're tough brothers. I don't pick on them because but I'm so glad I've got 2 brothers and a sister, and my mom and dad. My mom's passed away now, but she was one super sports person.
Yes.
But my dad here, he's always backed us. What more can we say? We got a great family life.
But we met very few fighters all over that you didn't like. It was very.
You got to look at the good points.
I can't remember any of them that were really bad. We only.
Gordy Wallace.
Yeah.
Gordy Wallace.
Yeah.
No, but I mean all over the place where we went in the States and that. Fighters were always the most polite and, I don't know, they were the nicest men that I'd ever met, so.
Yeah.
But if Frank hadn't had that, I don't know what he'd have done. I don't know what he would have done. He hadn't had boxing.
Gave him a great life.
Yeah, he'd been in it since he was 14 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember what was the first club he had was that little place on Alfred Street. We used to run fights in the old Alfred Street Arena 2 years ago. That's where he started out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then
No use asking us, that was before our time.
Oh,
Me, how old are you?
92, that's enough of that.
Is that the Arctic Arena?
Yeah, the old Alfred Street Arena.
Alfred Street Arena.
Oh.
That's
Don't tell me
even, that's
that
even,
you don't remember. He's too
yeah.
young yet to leave.
It was before our time.
Oh yeah, we run fights down there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know what Frank would have done if he hadn't had boxing.
Well,
I really don't.
I think he's
because he wasn't interested in anything else.
Well, he's got the qualities.
Well, he was the man for the job.
To be a very likable person.
Yeah, he was ideal if he could only.
Oh yeah.
Well, when he was boxing me, he was a good boxer.
Yeah.
Terrific boxer.
Yeah, as he was. He was. What I liked about it was the way he was with the kids.
Oh yeah.
They were,
yeah.
you know,
And
he didn't just treat them like a commodity. You know what I mean? He was there for the kids.
Yeah, he was a really good teacher.
Did ever heard him on the phone sometimes,
Yeah.
getting exact weight and how many fights they'd had. And are you sure? But
He would phone. He would phone other people
Oh,
too,
yeah.
other clubs.
oh yeah,
He had all
He had
the
connections all over
He
the
had
world.
connections all over. They called him right from New York, Madison Square Gardens when they set up the fight with.
I got
them.
a- I
What
got
didn't
a-
go through any.
I got a bundle about that thick, John, of managers' boxing business cards downstairs. I kept them from all over the world.
Wow,
That they say, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff.